Mr. MP, for that kind and generous and embarrassing introduction. I promise you my speech will be shorter than that. But I'm really honored to be speaking here tonight at the 13th graduation ceremony at the Vijay Ambani International School. I'm somewhat daunted after following Ananya, Karshif, and Aman. They are extraordinary speakers. I'm also aware that I'm standing between you and your diplomas, so I really have to hurry this up. Mrs. Nita Ambani, Mr. Mukesh Ambani, honored guests, faculty, staff, families, and of course the graduates. It's truly a delight to be here. I want to start by addressing the members of your support system, your parents, your siblings, your grandparents, aunts and uncles, who have nurtured you and encouraged you for years, and they're continuing this process even now as they sit here this evening. This is a very exciting time, and I feel and I share in your pride and your delight. You're now preparing to watch your student complete this journey and begin the next adventure in their lives. And we can only imagine where they'll be, what they'll be doing 5, 10 years from now, and many years to come. To the graduates, we're here to celebrate your success, your accomplishments, and to mark this important transition in your lives. You did it. Together, you are the extraordinary class of 2017 at the Dhirubhai Ambani International School. Before I came here, I knew about the sterling reputation of your school. Mrs. Ambani, you and your team have done an extraordinary job. You surely need the congratulations from all of us, especially those at universities who are the customers of your students. In only 14 years, the school, with its focus on excellence and rigor, and the well-rounded student, although after today I'm inclined to call them Super Marios, has emerged as the #1 international school in India and the #1 school in Mumbai. And certainly at Penn, we've been impressed by the quality of students and the education they receive. It is not surprising that the school has become such an exceptional wellspring of students for elite universities all around the world, and especially for the University of Pennsylvania. The statistics on the achievements of your graduates are very compelling. Penn is one of the most competitive schools in the United States. We receive over 40,000 applications each year. And it's very telling that this year we'll have not 1, not 2, but 3 students from the Dhirubhai Ambani International. And I'm sure if it invited deans at Stanford, Yale, Princeton, Berkeley, Cornell, Columbia, they would be saying the same thing. But of course, I'm from Penn, and I have to take pride in the fact that we have 3 of you joining us, be part of our family. Graduates, you're fortunate to have a running start to your life. Your academic preparation is first-rate, and even more impressive are the intellectual ambition and the poise that you possess. These traits cannot be taught. They're transmitted by example from a like-minded community, your peers, and your mentors. And I can relate to some of you in the room. Like many of you, I was born in India. But unlike you, I attended mediocre schools in small towns like Ranchi, Durgapur, and Bhilai. I was not a very good student. I have this vivid impression when I was 6 years old of failing in my first test. I got a 1 out of 10. And later on in life, even during high school, I was not a particularly good student. I became better. But music and sports were always my first love. And that was far more important than academics. And back then, we didn't know how to balance these things. You chose one thing and you did it well. But then I got a break in life. This was 1978, and this was the time when India moved from the 11+5 to the 12+4 system. So during my batch, we were given a choice in 11th grade. We could opt and try to enter colleges around the country. At the age of 16, I was far from thinking about colleges and thinking about the next stage in my life. But I had a mother who was very insistent, very persistent, and she tortured me until I took the joint entrance exam for the Indian Institutes of Technology. And then by some strange quirk of fate, I managed to secure admission with almost no preparation. That would never happen today. I was fortunate, and graduates, listen to your mothers. That's important. But even at the age of 16, I was rebellious. I decided to go, we had 5 IITs back then. I decided to go to an IIT that was far away from family, as far away as possible. We lived in Bhilai, which as you know is in central India, and I had aunts, uncles, grandparents in Delhi, Calcutta, Bombay, and Madras. So for me, it had to be Kanpur. A safe 48 hours away from home by train. But that single event, enrolling in IIT Kanpur, changed my life. I was suddenly catapulted into an environment where everybody knew more than me and seemed smarter than me. For some reason, I remember my very first lecture. It was a calculus lecture. And of course, most of the people in the room had some background in calculus. Everyone was familiar with the basics. And at the end of the first lecture, which was a review lecture, I could not understand why in differential calculus, when you wrote dy dx, why the 2 d's did not cancel out. I got my first C's in IIT, thankfully my only C's in my first semester. But at that point, I was wondering if I would ever survive in this elite institution. So mine was clearly not a running start. I could barely crawl. But eventually I started walking and then running because of the academic rigor, like yours, because of the community of peers and mentors, like yours. I learned simple facts. I don't know where Mr. Impey did all this research on my various habits, but I did play in a rock band, and I learned that playing in a rock band was not compatible with a good grade point average. At the age of 17, I learned to work hard. I also learned the value of persistence and the virtue of passion. I became passionate about engineering at 17. And this passion later on in life led me to pursue a doctoral degree in engineering, secure an academic position at Penn, pursue a career in robotics, led me to found and mentor 4 startup companies, and then take a position of an advisor in the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy in President Obama's administration. I have to mention that this was not Trump. And then the dean of a top engineering school in the world. And now, here I am, speaking to you today because of an institution, because of its teachers, and because of the peers. You and I have this in common. You're a member of this inspiring community. You've already experienced the full range of its offerings and have begun to discover the full reach of your abilities. And I'm proud here to be representing the University of Pennsylvania. Penn was America's first university and one of the first to admit women. It was founded by Benjamin Franklin, who was one of our most memorable figures, not just at Penn, but also in the nation. Franklin was a philosopher, writer, scientist, diplomat, engineer, and entrepreneur. I call him America's first engineer. Most importantly, Franklin was a believer in learning, and he put a premium in higher education. By the way, one of the rules I learned when I became dean is that if you're an administrator at Penn, you have to mention Benjamin Franklin's name at least once. Well, today I'm going to mention his name many times because Franklin was prolific and wise. And every advice that I can think of can be summarized by a quote by Benjamin Franklin. And among his most famous sayings is the quote, "An investment in knowledge always pays the best interest." Graduates, I can very confidently say, and I'm sure you will agree, that you, along with the support of your families, have made a wise investment. You now know much, much more than you did when you first started at this school. And your return on investment is very high. One of my favorite essays is an essay by a gentleman by the name of Ralph Gomery. Ralph Gomery is a well-known mathematician. He won the United States National Medal of Science, and he was an advisor to 3 American presidents. He wrote about 3 aspects of knowledge: the known, the unknown, and the unknowable. He would agree with me, if he was here, when I say you have pushed the boundary between what is known to you and what is unknown to you. You now know much, much more than when you first started. And just as a sailor cannot predict or change the direction of the wind, but knows how to adjust the sails in order to ultimately reach a destination, you've learned how to leverage the known to navigate the unknown. But what you cannot forget to consider is the unknowable. And despite your best efforts, there are things that neither you, nor I, nor anyone else in the room can know. In my own professional life, I've been struck by how much advances in technology have changed the world. Even after a doctoral degree, after 3 decades of experience in the field of robotics, there are changes that are simply unknowable to me. Mrs. Ambani spoke about this. Technology is an accelerator. It transforms our society in ways that nobody can predict with 100% accuracy. As a result of technology, you will be looking at a world that's sure to be different in ways that nobody can predict 30 years from now, 15 years from now, or even 5 years from now. Be prepared for that. And of course, with any acceleration and transformation comes disruption and unforeseen consequences. Be prepared for that as well. I want to share with you 3 examples from U.S. history that exemplify sweeping changes due to technology. My first example is agriculture. Agriculture was once the employer of 1 in 3 Americans. Today, because of advances in technology, farming is far more efficient and productive, and less than 2% of Americans work on farms. This was unknowable to individuals working 100 years ago, even those working on advancing technology in farming. My second example is more recent, manufacturing. Due to automation, U.S. manufacturing output has doubled in the last 30 years. But the industry now employs 30% fewer workers. Nobody could have known this 30 years ago. My third example is even more recent, mass media. Mass media is now drastically different than even 4 years ago. In May of 2013, nobody could have predicted that Facebook and Twitter, and not major news outlets in the US like the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, CNN, or Fox News would dominate the way Americans receive their news. These recent technological changes in manufacturing and mass media also enabled the biggest political upset in American history, the election of Donald Trump. That's how unknowable the effects of technology can be. We face unforeseen challenges, but with challenges come tremendous opportunities. And I personally believe that many of these opportunities will be in India. In the next 4 years, there will be 2.5 billion smartphone users in the world, and about 25% of those will be in India. In the next 4 years, with government investments in India's new digital economy and private investments in large-scale infrastructure projects like Geo, India will probably have the largest open API for the largest digital infrastructure. Indeed, it's likely that Mumbai and not London or New York will be the #1 center for fintech in the world. In the next 4 years, with the growth of 4G LTE networks and the decreasing cost to performance ratio of consumer electronics devices, we will have 50 billion devices connected to each other using the Internet of Things technology. And yes, even though there will be fewer than 8 billion people in the world. In the next 4 years, robotics and automation will affect 1.2 billion employees in the world, a little less than a fifth, and $14.6 trillion of wages globally. And 1/4 of this impact is likely going to be felt in India. Changes in the world may be unknowable, but they're inevitable. The person you decide to be and the world you decide to create in response to those changes, they will determine the significance of your contribution to history. Mrs. Ambani spoke about 3 important qualities and skills: creativity, empathy, and critical thinking. My first advice to you would be to add a 4th, to embrace and love technology, regardless of where your passion takes you. I feel fortunate to be a technologist at the University of Pennsylvania, which is one of the world's finest liberal arts institutions. Liberal arts are elevated and taught together with the professional disciplines. But today, if you look at global challenges, whether you think about food security, water shortage, clean energy, malnourished children, more efficient transportation networks, fighting infections or pandemics, it is difficult to imagine solutions that do not require technological innovation. And these are the challenges that face our planet. It's imperative then that we demand technological literacy in the next generation of leaders from all these disciplines. No matter what profession you ultimately choose, it would be naive to expect that technology will not influence your field in some way, even if you pursue the liberal arts or study law or literature. There was a debate on who wrote Henry VI, William Shakespeare or Christopher Marlowe. This debate was recently settled, not by experts in English literature, but by computer scientists and information theorists. They used data science to analyze writings by both authors. And I have news for you. Henry VI was written by Marlowe and not by Shakespeare. Today, we're more likely to rely on machine learning experts and not art historians to tell us how famous Impressionist painters Monet and Pissarro influenced each other, or to describe the relationship between Impressionism and Cubism. Advances in genomics, data science, social networks, and robotics have raised new ethical questions and legal questions concerning how we conduct our everyday lives. And lawyers will need a deep understanding of technology to answer some of these questions. Politicians, economists, and policymakers will have to grapple with the simple fact that technology is now creating more jobs for robots than for humans. How these changes driven by technology is again unknown. But whether you decide to be a teacher, a doctor, or a lawyer, having more than passing familiarity with technology and how it works and influences our lives will make you much more effective and capable in your work. So when the opportunity arises to take a course in technology in college, whether it be in programming or robotics, hopefully, or in biotechnology or artificial intelligence or nanotechnology, take it It'll serve you well. Technology is the new liberal art. For my second message today, I want to go back to my very first day in the United States of America. It was September 1, 1983. That was BITF, before Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So Facebook was started in 2004, Twitter in 2005, so I often refer to that time in history as 24 years before Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. The excitement of leaving everything in India at that time, and my very first day, my parents, my friends traveling 10,000 miles to a new country, being daunted by a new country, new culture, new foods, new customs, new people, and new accents. I thought I understood English, but I could not understand how to navigate New York as I tried to leave John F. Kennedy Airport. I was intimidated by people who seemed smarter than me because they were more comfortable in my new country. But the real lesson I learned was on my second day, September 2nd, 1983, when I bought my first newspaper in the US for 25 cents. Some of you in the audience may remember September 1st, 1983 as this infamous day when Soviet fighter jets shot down Korean Airlines 007. Naturally, the next morning I wanted to find out the story behind the shooting down of this passenger jet and the killing of many innocent lives. And remember, this was BITF, before Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. We got our news by reading newspapers. So I went out in the morning looking for a newspaper, and I found a vending machine. And I had to watch how to get papers out of the vending machine. And I was struck by how people deposited a quarter, opened the window of the vending box, and pulled out a newspaper from the top of the stack of newspapers, and then leave. They could have taken as many papers as they wanted. Nobody was watching them, but they did not. And this simple fact amazed me coming from India. The honesty, the integrity, and the American work ethic are impressive and still alive despite what you read about in the news media and despite what you hear about American politics. And this integrity extends to our classrooms, to how students do their homework and projects and how they conduct themselves. It's called the honor system. It's a social contract in which integrity is expected, even demanded, and it's the norm, even if there are a few exceptions. You, indeed all of us, must protect this contract of integrity. As Benjamin Franklin wrote in his autobiography, integrity breeds trust. And only with trust will people follow you willingly and look to you as a leader. My third piece of advice is to embrace diversity. And by this I mean not diversity in race, gender, religion, or ethnicity, but in thinking and in experience. The former president of the United States National Academy of Engineers, William Wolfe, said that without diversity, we limit the set of life experiences that are applied in our situations. And as a result, we pay an opportunity cost. A cost in products not built, a cost in designs not considered, a cost in constraints not understood, a cost in processes not invented. Having a diverse set of voices around you is imperative, especially when you're thinking of solving challenging problems or implementing change. It is natural for all of us to seek out individuals that are like us, that are familiar to us, that have the same culture or speak the same language in our chosen profession. But without a diverse set of voices in the room, you will be limited in what you can achieve. And then finally, my last piece of advice, don't forget your school, your friends, and your network. The students around you, your fellow classmates, are the first members of your peer network. You will keep expanding this network, but these are your first members. Don't underestimate the power of your network and actively work to maintain this network. And please grow this network through real connections. Increasingly, our social interactions are dominated by social media and tools that social media offers to us. Most student social networks are mediated through machines, through computers. But the truest networks you build and the strongest relationships you'll have are with real people, not cyber friends. I'd like to conclude by asking you to be a worthy and proud representative of your excellent school and to work to make your unique contribution to the human spirit. Class of 2017, I admire what you've accomplished and I envy you the experiences that lie ahead. Congratulations to all of you. Before I leave the podium, let me close with some closing credits. The opportunity to attend the school has been a gift to you from your parents. Please thank them for the love and generosity they've shown to you, for working hard to provide for you, and for encouraging you to withstand the pressure of taking difficult classes, for being patient and understanding, and for empowering you to pursue your biggest and wildest dreams. Let's give them a round of applause. And as Benjamin Franklin also said, genius without education is like silver in the mine. But for your teachers, you would still be the ore, the mineral in a mine. Let's thank your teachers and the faculty for bringing out the genius in you. And for honing all the talents that you have and the skills that you've developed. I'll stop now because Benjamin Franklin also said, "He that speaks much is much mistaken." Thank you again for allowing me to share this special day. Congratulations once more.